Officer David was nearing the end of a long shift in the pouring rain when he suddenly received a call over the radio. The dispatcher announced that a 3-year-old boy called 911 to report an incident at 45 Green Street. Initially, David thought it might just be a naughty kid playing with his phone or an innocent prank. However, there was something in the coordinator's voice, a mixture of anxiety and skepticism, that made him feel uneasy. Years of experience have taught him to never take any calls lightly, especially when there are children involved. The pouring rain and the sound of his patrol car mingled with the whistle as David turned on his lights and steered the car through the quiet streets of the neighborhood. Green Street was originally a peaceful living area, but tonight the storm brought an uneasy atmosphere. As he approached the address, the anxiety in his heart grew. The house, a small whitewashed bungalow with an abandoned garden, looked strangely quiet in the dim light. An overturned tricycle lay on the aisle, its vibrant colors dull in the rain, and the sight sent a chill down David's spine. Whatever awaited him inside, he knew that this would not be an ordinary shift. David got out of the car, put on his hat to cover the rain, and checked the flashlight again. Cold raindrops like a blade cut through his skin, but he tried to ignore it to focus on the task at hand. The wooden gate leading into the house was slightly open, creaking as he gently pushed it. The sound of his footsteps on the flooded walkway blended with the sound of rain to form a strange rhythm. David walked to the front door and knocked hard, his fist sounding in the silent night. "Police! Is anyone at home?" He called out loudly, trying to drown out the sound of the rain, but there was only silence in response. The light from the porch clearly illuminated the number 45 engraved on the wooden door frame, confirming that he had arrived at the correct address. He tried the door handle, it didn't lock. A vigilance rose in his heart. Opening the door, he carefully entered. The house was in darkness, except for the faint light from a table lamp placed in the hallway. The interior is simple but shows no signs of abnormality other than a strange silence. "Police!" He called out louder again, his voice more decisive. This time, a vague sound like a whisper or a soft cry came from the end of the hallway. David held the flashlight tightly, shining the light through the dark corridor. He walked over slowly, all his senses were tense. Each step brought him closer to that strange sound, now clearer, the cry of a child. He stopped in front of an open door of the room. Through the gap in the door, a faint light from the nightlight appeared, along with the figure of a small boy sitting curled up on the floor. The boy was wearing a soaked t-shirt, holding a teddy bear tightly in both hands, and his eyes filled with tears. When he saw David, he looked up, his face full of fear but a hint of hope. "My mother doesn't get up anymore." The boy's words made David's heart tighten. He quickly walked into the room, glancing quickly to assess the situation. A woman lay motionless on the bed, seemingly motionless. David immediately checked the woman's breathing and pulse. She was alive but unconscious. Her breathing was weak. He hurriedly called for support over the radio. His voice was firm but his heart was full of worry. "There is an unconscious woman who needs immediate emergency care at 45 Green Street. Bring the ambulance here right away." While waiting for the rescue team, David returned to the boy, trying to reassure him. "I'm fine. Everything will be fine. I'll help my mother." The boy looked at him, tears still rolling down his cheeks, but they were less shaky. David took his hand, gently comforting him, letting him know that he was no longer alone in this terrifying stormy night. The sound of the ambulance horn echoed in the distance, breaking the quiet atmosphere of the rainy night. David stood beside the boy, one hand resting lightly on his shoulder as if to reassure him, his gaze still not leaving the woman on the bed. His eyes were clearly worried but also full of determination. When the rescue team arrived, they quickly moved inside with stretchers and medical equipment. David stood aside, explaining the situation to the doctor. She was unconscious, her breathing was weak, the cause was unknown. The boy said his mother didn't get up anymore, but there were no external signs of injury. One of the medical staff quickly checked the woman, nodding to her teammates. "She still has a pulse, but needs to be taken to the hospital immediately for further testing." They quickly put the woman on a stretcher and prepared to leave. David looked down at the boy, his voice full of tenderness. "Do you want to go with me?" The boy nodded, but his legs remained still as if frozen in place. David understood that he was too scared to move. He bent down, gently picked up the boy, and felt the trembling in that little body. "It's okay. I'll come with you," he said, reassuring as he followed the rescue team outside. On the way to the hospital, David kept comforting the boy, asking him to understand more about the situation. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to create a bit of intimacy. "My name is Ethan," the boy replied, his voice soft. "My mother is Anna." "Okay, Ethan," David said, smiling encouragingly. "My mother will be fine. The doctors at the hospital will take care of my mother." When the ambulance stopped at the hospital, David still carried Ethan in his arms, closely following the medical team into the emergency room. He noticed the boy's worried eyes watching his mother, even though he didn't say a word. While waiting for the doctors to check Anna's condition, David sat down in the waiting chair, still holding Ethan in his arms. The boy leaned his head on his shoulder, seemingly relieved of the tension in David's presence. In that moment, David is not only a police officer on duty, but also a spiritual support for a boy who is facing the greatest fear of his life. In his heart, a determination was rekindled, to find out the cause of this situation and to make sure that Ethan and his mother would be safe, not only tonight but also in the days to come. The waiting time in the hospital passed slowly. Every minute was as long as hours. David was still sitting in the waiting chair, the boy Ethan leaning against him, his tired eyes gradually closing. Meanwhile, David's mind was constantly moving. The questions revolved around Anna's condition, what had happened before, and whether there were any dangers he hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, a doctor came out of the emergency room. "Are you a relative of Anna?" the doctor asked, his eyes showing seriousness but not too nervous. David gently put Ethan down in his chair and walked closer to the doctor. "I'm a policeman. I brought her and her son here. How's her situation?" The doctor sighed, looking at the note. "She was severely exhausted and showed signs of malnutrition. We performed basic tests and did not detect any immediate dangerous pathology. However, her spirit seems to be very stressful, which can lead to her current condition. She needs to rest and be better cared for in the near future." David nodded, somewhat relieved to know that the situation was not critical. "Will she wake up soon?" he asked. "We have given fluids and medicines. Maybe she'll wake up in a few hours, but will need to be monitored further," the doctor replied, then turned to look at Ethan, who was now looking at them both with a mixture of curiosity and fear. David turned to the boy, sat down at eye level and said softly, "Your mom will be fine, Ethan. The doctor just said that I just need to rest a little." Ethan was silent, his eyes sparkling as if he wanted to cry, but he didn't shed tears. "My mother works a lot," the boy said, his voice as small as a whisper. "Mother never rests." Ethan's words made David pause. A feeling of despair crept up in him. He knew that behind this story were probably the pressures and difficulties that Anna was suffering alone. The determination in David's heart became even clearer. He couldn't just leave after everything was fine. Anna and Ethan don't just need medical help during this time. They need a more sustainable support. As Ethan began to drop his head on his shoulder, tired of taking over the boy, David gently picked him up again. "Please take a break. It's going to be all right," he whispered, but in his heart he knew that there would be no stability if he didn't get to the root of the problem. He told himself that as soon as Anna woke up, he would try to find out more about the situation of the mother and daughter. If necessary, he is willing to connect them to social services or any resources they deserve. This is not only the duty of a policeman, but also the responsibility of a person in the face of injustices and difficulties in life. A few hours later, David was dreaming in a nap when the door to the hospital room opened. He immediately woke up and found Anna lying on the bed. Her eyes just opened. A tired look was still evident on her face, but her eyes gradually regained some vitality when she realized that she was safe in the hospital. "David," Anna called softly, her voice weak but enough for him to hear. David stood up, approached and smiled slightly. "Hello. You've worried us." Anna looked around, seemingly trying to understand what had happened. "Where's Ethan? Is he okay?" David pointed to the chair next to him, where the boy was curled up in the blanket, sleeping peacefully. "He's fine, he sleeps very well. As for you, the doctor said you need to rest and recover." Anna sighed, but her worry didn't completely disappear. I'm sorry. Everything became overwhelming. I don't know how to get through it." David sat down in the chair next to the bed, his eyes full of sympathy. "You don't need to apologize, but I need to know what's going on. What brought you and Ethan into this situation?" Anna was silent, her eyes looking distant as if she was reminiscing. After a while, she began to tell, her voice choked up. "I left my husband. He was a violent person. I suffered for years, but then I couldn't let Ethan grow up in such a violent house. We fled with very little money and nowhere to go. I do everything to make a living, but it's not enough to take care of my mother and daughter. At times I thought I wouldn't be able to go on anymore." David was silent. Anna's words seemed to paint a tragic picture of the life she had experienced. He understood that Anna was not only battling physical fatigue but also struggling with unquenchable mental pain. "You did it right," David said, his voice firm. "Leaving is the right choice, but she didn't have to shoulder everything herself. There are people and organizations that are willing to help people like her." Anna looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. "But I'm afraid. I was afraid if he found us. I'm more afraid of that than anything." David placed a hand gently on her shoulder, his eyes full of determination. "Let me help. As a policeman, I can protect your mother and daughter, and I will make sure you have the support you need to start your new life again." His words seemed to ignite a glimmer of hope in Anna's eyes. For the first time in months, she felt that she was not alone in this fight. David sat beside her, continuing to listen to the story, every detail of the traumatic past and the difficulties that the mother and daughter had to endure. In his heart, he secretly promised to do everything to ensure that Anna and Ethan lived in safety and peace. This was no longer just a chance encounter, but a great responsibility that he felt he needed to undertake. The next day, Anna felt better, and her health gradually recovered from the shock and exhaustion. However, her mood was still heavy because of what she had experienced, and the long sleepless nights during the escape still haunted her mind. Ethan hadn't woken up yet, but he wasn't worried anymore, and Anna knew that his safety was the most important thing right now. David returned to the hospital in the afternoon, this time not only as a security guard but also with the goal of helping them in the real world. He brought documents and papers, ready to explain to Anna the next steps she could take to protect herself and Ethan in the future. "Anna, I know you went through a lot of emotions yesterday, but now is the time for us to plan for the future. There are several organizations that protect women and children in her situation. We can help you get in touch with them," David said, his voice soft but serious. Anna looked at him with a look of confusion but also full of hope. "I don't know where to start anymore. I felt like everything was falling apart. Will he ever find us?" David tried to reassure her. "We'll help you build a protection plan. The organizations I spoke of could provide her with safe housing, legal assistance, and even a job so she could support herself and Ethan. And if necessary, we will make sure that he will not be able to approach you again." At that moment, Ethan began to move, and the boy opened his eyes and looked around the room. Anna hurriedly approached, worried but still with a gentle smile when she saw that her son had woken up. "Hello, did you sleep well?" she asked, her voice gentle as a welcome to safety again. Ethan looked at his mother for a moment, and then at David with a strange look. The boy didn't fully understand what had happened, but his eyes were still full of reassurance at the sight of David's concern. "You're fine, Mom. We won't be arrested by anyone again, will we?" Ethan's question made Anna feel choked up. She knew her son was scared, but maybe this time, that wouldn't be anymore. She no longer had to live in constant fear. David saw the worry in Anna's eyes, and he knew that he needed to continue to help them. "We're going to do everything we can to make sure, Ethan, and you don't have to be afraid. Let me help you plan. Let us protect you." When the day was over, although there were still many things that were still unclear, Anna felt a certain relief. David's words were like a lifeline in the turbulence she and her son had experienced. And for the first time in months, she began to believe that a new life, no more fear and no more running away, might be slowly unfolding before her eyes. A few weeks later, Anna began to gradually adjust to her new life, although the wounds in her soul had not yet fully healed. Thanks to the support from David and the protection organizations, she was moved to a safe place, a small but cozy apartment. Here, she and Ethan are strictly protected, no longer having to fear being chased or recaptured. All of these precautions, from changing your phone number to creating a fake profile to avoid your ex-husband's detection, are carefully and thoughtfully taken. However, in Anna's heart, the feeling of restlessness still exists. Despite a lot of help, she still couldn't completely get rid of her fear of what might happen in the future. Every time there was a strange noise from outside the window, or when someone looked at her for too long, she felt her heart pounding, ready to run away if necessary. She knew that even if she was in a safe place, danger could come at any time, and that was something she couldn't fully accept. Ethan, though young, was a great comfort to her. The boy quickly adjusts to his new environment, goes to a nearby school, and it seems that he no longer feels confused or scared. He also gradually made new friends, children in the classroom whom he considered family. Every day, when Ethan returned home, his happy stories about school warmed Anna's soul. She saw hope in her eyes, and that was the only reason she kept rising. One day, while cleaning the house, Anna receives an unexpected call. On the other end of the line was a woman named Mary, from a women's protection organization that David had introduced earlier. She announces that there is an important piece of information that Anna needs to know. Anna felt her heart race. "What is it?" she asked, her voice trembling, not daring to believe what she was about to hear. Mary said seriously, "We have received information from a reliable source that your ex-husband is looking for you. He has tried to reach out to several organizations and has even tried to find her through online channels. Although he doesn't know your exact location yet, we need to act immediately." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. The fear she had been trying to push back was now stronger than ever. But she must not be weak. She knew that if she let fear prevail, everything she had done would be meaningless. "Thank you for informing me," she said, trying to stay calm. "What do we have to do next?" Mary replied softly but firmly, "We will arrange for you and Ethan to move to a safer place, where there is 24/7 security. We will contact law enforcement and make sure that he will not be able to find you again." Anna nodded, her heart full of determination. She couldn't let herself fall. She couldn't let Ethan live in fear again. "Thank you. I'll be ready." The next steps will not be easy, but Anna knows that she is not alone in this journey. With the help of the likes of David and Mary, she feels stronger than ever. She will do everything necessary to protect herself and her son, so that they can live a peaceful life, no longer threatened by the ghosts of the past. A few days after the call from Mary, Anna and Ethan begin to prepare for an important turn in their lives. The protection organization helped them find a new home in a remote area where no one knew about them. Despite being very worried about her and her son's safety, Anna feels a bit of hope again. Every decision she makes is geared towards building a new life, even though the road ahead is full of difficulties. Upon arriving at her new residence, Anna was instructed by people from the protection organization on precautions to stay safe. She was provided with state-of-the-art security equipment, from surveillance cameras to alarm systems. She was also advised to change all personal information, from phone numbers to social media accounts, to minimize the possibility of detection. These things made Anna feel as if she was living in a secluded house, but she knew this was a necessary step to protect her family. Ethan, though still very young, has begun to realize that his life is changing. Anna didn't want Ethan to feel scared or insecure, so she tried to create a happy atmosphere in the family by involving him in decorating the house and hosting cozy family evenings. However, she couldn't hide the worries in her heart. Every time she hears a knock on the door or a car parked in the yard, she fears that her ex-husband will show up or that someone will find out where they are hiding. In fact, the threat was still there, but Anna began to learn to live with fear. She understands that preparedness is necessary, but she can't let it dominate her entire life. She tries to maintain a normal routine, even if there is always a little stress in her heart. Every day, she works remotely via the internet, takes online courses to improve her skills, and continues to try to create a future for herself and her son. One evening, while cooking in the kitchen, Anna receives a call from David. "Anna, I have good news for you," his voice filled with optimism. "I have just received information from the legal authorities. They conducted an investigation and confirmed that your ex-husband is no longer able to reach you. He was placed in special management after committing life-threatening behavior." Anna felt a wave of relief rise in her heart. Although she knew that the danger would never completely disappear, at least for now, she and Ethan could live more safely. "Thank you very much, David," she said, feeling the relief in her voice. "I really don't know what to do without your help." David laughed lightly. "That's what I want to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore, Anna. We will continue to monitor the situation closely and ensure that you and Ethan will always be safe." Anna looked at Ethan, who was happily playing in the living room, and her heart suddenly warmed. She had gone through a lot of suffering and fear, but now, she had found some peace again. Anna knew that there was still a long way to go, but at least she could smile, having been able to give Ethan a brighter future, and give herself a chance to live her true life, no longer haunted by the shadow of the past. Although everything seemed to be steadily stabilizing, Anna still couldn't completely relax. The feeling of vigilance does not easily disappear after a long time of living in fear. One morning, while taking Ethan to a school near her home, Anna noticed a car parked at the beginning of a small road leading into her compound. She didn't think much at first, but the feeling of insecurity quickly came over. The car didn't move, and the occupants kept staring at her. Anna tried to stay calm, but she couldn't help but feel worried. Ethan's trip to school also became a reality check on her family's safety. She memorized the license plate and quickly informed David, although she didn't want to cause more anxiety to anyone. David had promised to send someone to check on the situation, but the appearance of that car reminded her that, despite many protective measures, danger is always lurking. In the days that followed, Anna began to be more vigilant. She no longer went out alone at night, and every time she left the house, she would make sure the door was locked. She also began taking self-defense classes, even though she knew that it wasn't the only solution to protect her family. Feelings of insecurity still surround her, and worries about her son's safety are still present in every decision she makes. However, during a conversation with David, she realized one important thing: vigilance cannot ruin her life. David encouraged Anna not to let fear overwhelm her. "Anna," he said, "life will never be completely safe, but you have the right to choose to live freely and not be controlled by fear." David's words serve as an important reminder, helping Anna realize that while safety is important, living a real life is also worth it. She decided that she would not let anxiety get in the way of her life. Anna and Ethan began participating in outdoor activities, such as walking in the park and participating in group sessions at the community center. They create happy memories together, so that life is not just anxious days. And although she could never be completely reassured, Anna knew that she had done all she could to protect her family. She believes that with the strength and support of those around her, she will find peace and freedom in her new life, even though that path is still challenging.